Welcome back to See Today Business. Bank Indonesia has decided to raise the BI rate to 6.25% following their Board of Governors meeting, which concluded yesterday. The move was only forecasted by a minority of analysts. Now, the central bank said that the decision was made in a bid to stabilize the Rupiah's exchange rate and also control inflation amid escalating tensions in the Middle East and greater uncertainty.
On the potentially than expected current Fed rate and global uncertainties, Bank Indonesia increased its BI rate to 6.25%. To keep the rupiah strong and maintain inflation, Bank Indonesia also increased deposit facility to 5.5% and lending facility to 7%. The US dollar has reached above 16,000 rupiah mark in recent weeks and lowest level in 4 years. US dollar index reached a high of 106.3 on April 16, marking a 4.8% strengthen since the end of 2023.
Kami meyakini bahwa rupiah akan tetap stabil di sekitar 16.200 pada triwulan 2 ini dan akan menguat ke arah rata 16.000 di triwulan 3 dan bahkan akan menguat ke rata 15.800 pada triwulan 4 2024 dengan respon-respon yang tadi kami sudah sampaikan.
Additionally, Bank Indonesia will strengthen their policy and optimize their monetary components, including intervention in the foreign exchange market, buying government bonds from secondary market, and manage liquidity adequately to stabilize rupiah exchange rate in the future.
All right, so how will the BI rate hike impact the Indonesian market and will it reinforce the rupiah? Let's delve more into it with economist David Sumual. Hi, Pak David. Thank you so much for joining us today on See Today Business to talk about this. Right, so this is, of course, very concerning. Recently, of course, we've seen the Indonesian rupiah weakening, crossing 16,000, even hitting a 4-year low. This comes amid the strengthening dollar. Now, amid all this, Bank Indonesia, they've defied, majority of analyst expectations and they hiked their BI rates. So talk to us about the factors on why they did this and is the strengthening US dollar posing that big of a risk?
Okay, Krishna, thank you. I think the hike was the right step to take. Yeah, and for me it was expected. We know rupiah, like also other currencies, were under pressures lately, and it seems to me that the Bank Indonesia tried to anchor the inflation expectation. So I hope the hike will improve the attractiveness of rupiah asset. And we know that the central bank also intervened lately through the market operations and very persistent since last month. And they have spent around $3 billion. And we know last month and also this month, the demand for import because we approach the Idul Fitri, dividend payment and also debt repayment also increase the demand for dollar. So the dollar is quite strong, and I think there are also some external factors, like we know that there is a kind of significant swing in the market for federal fund rates expectations, and it also explains why the dollar is quite strong lately. And we know in the past 3 months, the inflation, the actual inflation is always higher than the economist expectation. This is the factors. And also we know before the market open after the Idul Fitri holidays, we have another factor. We have geopolitical factors. So the recent geopolitical turbulence in Middle East also affect the currencies. And we know the oil price rose quite significantly after the attack of Iran in Middle East. And we know Indonesia is a net oil importer. So we need much more dollar to import oil because of higher oil prices. Right. That's the situations actually why the rupiah is so weak, and also why Bank Indonesia decided to hike rate 2 days ago.
All right, a lot of factors involved. As you mentioned, of course, the stronger dollar is one of them. potentially impacting inflation in Indonesia. Now, so that Bank Indonesia has now raised its rates, can we expect the rupiah to rebound? What will that look like, and how long will it take potentially to cross back maybe into 15,000?
Okay, I think still the external factors, as I mentioned before, will still play the crucial role. In the short term. I think the recent hike may not significantly improve the rupiah's value
Yeah.
in the short term, and the market still expect for the higher, or not higher, but high for longer Fed rate expectation, because just recently we saw some indicators like inflation, PCE numbers also
Yeah.
still higher than expected.
Yeah.
So the rupiah, I think, may still hover between 16,000 to 16,300 for the time being, unless something happen externally. Yeah. For example, the market right now is waiting for the upcoming quarterly refinancing announcement from the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah.
So if the U.S. Treasury announce buyback program, for example, it will bring more liquidity for sure. Yeah, and it may affect the movement of the currency, not only hard currency but also soft currencies like rupiah. So I think the Bank Indonesia's projections of below 6,000, I think it only may reflect the BI's expectation of loosening external pressures later in this year. Yeah. So for the time being, I think still hovering between those numbers as I mentioned before, 16,000 to 16,300.
Right. So basically, what you're saying is a lot of this all depends on external factors,
External
including
factors, yes.
the Fed, as you mentioned, which for now many are expecting higher for longer rates as the situation
Yeah.
is right now. So you're forecasting between 16,000 and 16,300 perhaps until the end of the year.
No, it's
If-
only
if-
for
if-
the short term. Yeah,
Short
for
term,
short
right.
term.
Okay, for the short term, that's your expectation. Okay. Right. Now, despite that, as we have talked about before as well, other currencies have been under pressure as well, including the Malaysian ringgit, which managed to fall to a 26-year low. Now, how does the rupiah fare or compare to its regional peers?
Okay. Rupiah actually, if we compare, faring much better, actually, relative to other emerging market currencies. For example, Thailand baht depreciated around 8%. Also, Malaysian ringgit more or less the same like rupiah, yeah, around 4 to 5% depreciations. And even some hard currencies, yeah, like for example, Japanese yen, actually year to date already depreciated around 15%. Last year also they depreciated around the same number, 15%. So actually, weakening rupiah is not always bad, yeah, for the economy.
Sure.
I hope actually the depreciation of rupiah will make rupiah more competitive, especially for the exporter. And if we allow the rupiah to gradually weaken, the domestic manufacturing sector actually can maintain their competitiveness, yeah, in the regional market. Because as we see, the Japanese yen depreciated by 15%, as I mentioned before. Other competitive countries like Korean won and also yuan also depreciated, but of course not as much as Japanese yen. So there are some good factors also for rupiah if we can maintain the weakening rupiah in a gradual manners. Yeah. But if suddenly or significantly depreciating in the only short term, of course it will affect the confidence of the market. So it's really important to maintain the stability of the rupiah rather than the nominal target. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the impact onto investor sentiment and also financial markets in Indonesia. How has Bank Indonesia's decision to raise its rates by 25 basis points affected that, especially the stock
Yes.
markets?
Yeah. So far, the jury is still out there following this decision. So far, the stock market continues to move sideways, while the benchmark of the government bond yield is still hovering around 7%. I think the hike will not jeopardize the country's GDP growth target. We still maintain the objective of 5% of growth this year. And we know that 2 days ago, Bank Indonesia also had simultaneously announced the liquidity incentives, that could stimulate also some certain sectors. I think it's also a good move. And moreover, the increase of the benchmark rate or the BI rate is not necessarily followed by an increase in lending rates if we see the data. If we see the data from the Financial Service Authority, the BI rate has increased by around 275 basis points. But the increase of lending rates is actually only 40 to 70 basis points. Even the consumption lending rates actually fell by 5 basis points. So there's no one-to-one correlations actually between the benchmark rate and also the lending rate. This is one that always being asked by the people.
Okay. Right. So just very quickly, we're running out of time, but previously you were mentioning some factors that could perhaps ease the pressure on the rupiah. Talk to us about the other maybe external factors, if those factors were to play out, how that could ease the pressure on the rupiah and maybe strengthen it further than the forecast that you were talking about in the short term.
Yeah, I think in the short term, medium factors, the external factors, which are I mentioned before, the Fed rate and also the geopolitical factors will still be the key drivers for the market movement. And as I mentioned before, also in the short term, the market is also waiting for the U.S. Treasury announcement of the quarterly refunding program. If the Treasury announce higher than expected issuance of U.S. Treasury, of course it will affect and it will give pressures into the currency market. From the domestic market, I think we hope that the surplus, the trade surplus will still be maintained. Like what happened in March last month, we have a very big trade surplus, and it will improve actually the outlook of the Indonesia's current account. And market also is waiting for the composition of the next cabinet for sure. Especially for the economic minister's portfolio, Krishna.
Okay, right. And of course, as you were mentioning before, a weaker rupiah could potentially help our exports as well, and consequently our trade surplus as well. So a lot of things still waiting to be played out. Pak David Sumual, economist, thank you so much for your insights today.
Okay, thank you, Krishna.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to go for a very short break, but when we return, we will have the daily recap from the first session of trading on the IDX. Stay tuned on See Today Business.